Hi folks, we got a great model to work on this time around. It is Trapjaw from Masters of the Universe, and this is by LA Figures. Now, if I just zoom in a little bit and we'll see some of the details here. Now, I printed this guy at 125%, so the model comes in approximately 110 scale. So I've bumped him up to about 1/8 scale. Space is definitely a bit of a premium these days, so I didn't want to go any bigger than 1/8, but that's a pretty good size. I'm pretty happy with how he's come out. Now, I've never made a figure by these guys before, but I tell you what, I certainly will be doing some more. I've subscribed to their monthly Patreon. I've never put a model together that's so easy as this. Believe it or not, none of this guy is glued in place. Every single bit is just held on by gravity and very good engineering. Honestly, every other sculptor out there needs to learn how to do it, because these guys are really showing everyone else up. There is not a single gap in the joints, so we spin him round, like where the legs, the boots cuts, the body. So you can see here, obviously they have sculpted it so it sinks in, and there's just no gap. It's phenomenal. So it means, from a painting point of view, it's fantastic because everything can be painted in sections, which makes the painting a whole lot easier. Even so far as, would you believe, the hand isn't even glued on? It honestly, it's just, I say, it's been so well cut. It is absolutely fantastic. So he has a spare weapon, or I say spare weapon replacement. So you've got the hook, but you can also swap that out with the gun. There we go. There's no particular reason I painted the weapons black. It's because I ran out of grey primer. So I sprayed obviously him grey. The base black was intentional, but everything else should be nice and ready for painting. Some really nice textures on the model, across the skin. Let's say he's come out really well. Cleanup was very easy. Again, it's partly obviously how I supported it, but also partly just because the way that the cuts on the pieces are done. I take the head off. And again, even the head, there's no gap where his helmet is, so everything can be painted individually. Okay, so enough of me going on about how great I think the model is. Let's slap some paint on this thing. Starting with the skin, I'm going to go from a fairly dark blue up to a lighter blue. So to start with, I'm going to use Cantor Blue from Citadel. And as I say, this is going to be a fairly dark blue, but it should give a nice starting coat on which to work up from. So it's just a case of getting it in all the skin, trying to be as even as possible. Okay, so with that first dark coat applied, I'm now going to go over the whole skin with a dry brush of Macragge Blue. So this should start to brighten up the skin. And again, you want to concentrate on the raised areas and leave those recesses a bit darker, which should naturally happen through dry brushing anyway, because it shouldn't hit your dry brush. If it's a nice rounded brush, it shouldn't hit those recesses anyway. So that first coat will be fairly subtle shift in change colour, but the second one will be a little bit stronger. So to achieve that, I'm going to put a little drop of Corax White into the mix of that blue. And just mix up the colour until you're fairly happy that it's a lighter shade, but not too strong a lighter shade. You don't want to go up too much. Once you're happy with that, it's just a case of repeating the process with the next dry brush. So I've taken the blue a little bit up. You probably won't be able to see the difference, but trust me, it's a little bit lighter. So let's start applying this in the same way. Now we're going to take that up one more step, and hopefully this should be the last step. So again, it's just about adding more and more white to that colour to bring up the intensity. So hopefully, don't know how well it's coming out, but it's picking up all the textures, and I say keeping the recesses all nice and dark. And then that's the result of all that dry brushing. So fairly happy with that. I just put the pieces together just so I could make sure that the skin matches up. But I think that will do it. Excellent. Okay, let's move on to the next part. For the head, I'm going to start with the skin using some dark green, in this case wire flesh, and just a case of, again, making sure even coat and you get into all the nooks and crannies. Next up, I'm going to take some Biltan green, which is quite a vibrant green wash, and that's just going to go, dry my brush off, that's just going to go all over the face, just to cover that green. So again, all we're trying to do at this point is to fill in essentially the recesses to give it a bit of definition. So make sure it goes into all the parts you want, make sure it goes into the crooks of the eyes, the nostrils, and the folds in the cheeks. Next up, I'm going to take some Goblin Green, which is a slightly yellowier green, and I'm going to apply a dry brush across the face. What this is going to do is obviously start bringing out some colour on the raised details. I'm now going to follow that up with a second dry brush, only this time I've dropped a bit of yellow into that Goblin Green. And I'm going to go with a second pass, which again is just going to brighten it up a little bit more. And I'll probably do a couple of passes with this, just build up the intensity very slowly. So after adding another drop of yellow, just to take up the intensity a little bit more, this is what I'm left with. It's looking a little bit more neon on the camera than it is in real life, but I'm pretty happy with that. So then to finish off the face, I'm going to do some black in for the eyebrows. Then I just mixed some Rakarth flesh and some Uriel yellow, just to basically give me a thicker sort of yellow. And then that's just going to go in very carefully into the eyes. Then I'm going to finish that off with a drop of Cassandora yellow. So this is a slightly orangey wash. And I'm just going to drop a bit of that into each eye and let it run into the recesses. Not sure how well that's picked up, but it'll make a bit of difference. Now I don't know how well the camera's picking that up, but that Cassandora yellow into the eye was a real good move actually. That was the chef's kiss. It's coloured the eye, it's given it a nice texture, and it's given a little slight pink around the edges. I say unfortunately my camera's not good enough to pick that up, but believe me, it does look quite good. Finally, what I'm going to do, that black looks a little bit just plain and stark on the eyebrows, so I'm just going to feather in some Dawnstone. So just lightly run across. So for the helmet and all the red pieces of armour, I have bought myself a fancy new paint just for this model. Caesar Red by Green Stuff World. It is a metallic red, but it's kind of a pinky purpley red, which I think is the exact colour, I'm hoping it is the exact colour that I want for this model. Because again, most of the time Trapjaw, when he is shown in various mediums, or comic or figure or cartoon, he's not exactly red. He's often like a pinky purpley red. So let's hope that this is gonna work. Now, it's a pretty nice colour. What do we think? Yeah, I think that's gonna work. It's fairly thin, so I think I'm gonna have to do a couple of coats of this at least. But yeah, I think that works. Okay, I'm going to carry on and finish off the helmet. Next up, it's going to be some gunmetal silver, and that's going to go across the centre part here and the little hoop. Finally then, to give a little bit of more detail to the helmet, I'm going to take some Runefang steel, which is a very shiny silver. What I'm going to do is do a little bit of battle damage. Now, to help matters, the sculpt actually has sort of dents and scratches in it already. So I think if I just sort of follow that for the first part, just go along, put in all the little pits and dents and things like that, work it around, and then see how it looks. And here is the finished result with all those little scratches put in. I also did a bit of edge highlighting around the teeth, around sort of where the finer parts of the helmet. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. I think that looks like Trapjaw. I think that silver red, it works pretty well. I'm not going to paint his eyes in. I think I'm going to leave it like that. I could paint eyeballs in, but I actually think he looks a little bit more menacing, just like this. So the good thing is now I've sort of worked out a way of doing the armour. I'm just going to replicate that same process on all the other parts, so on his gun, on his hook, all those kind of things. So I don't need to take you through that again. It's all basically the same method. Okay, let's move on to the next part. So let's just do a quick test fit and see where we are. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good. That definitely looks like Trapjaw. I think we're onto the right track. So let's do the black next. So all the parts of the model, I'm just going to do a basic layer black, and I'm going to concentrate on all those areas. You've got the boots, you've got the shoes, and a couple of other areas as well. All the black is then followed up with a dry brush of neutral grey, just to bring out all the details. Then it's gunmetal silver to pick out these little rivets and these sort of stitches across. Next up, I'm going to tackle his furry pants, and to do that I'm going to use a burgundy by Citadel, and this should be a nice decent purple base coat. Next up, I'm going to throw a purple wash of Druki Violet over all that purple we just put on. That is then followed up with a dry brush of Screamer Pink, just across all those raised edges. And then that is followed up with a second dry brush, this time of Pink Horror, just to notch that colour up a little bit more. Next up is the remaining armour parts, which is on the knee and on the belt, and also around the wrist. So I want to do this metallic green. I don't have a metallic green, but nevertheless, that doesn't matter. I do have silver and I have green. So mixing up gunmetal with a little bit of Warpstone Glow, which is quite a luminous green. Mix all that up together, and then you should give you a nice silvery green. So there you go. So it's a nice little cheat if you haven't got the metallic paint you need. As long as you've got silver, possibly even gold, you can probably mix up a colour. Next up, I'm going to take some black wash, and what I'm going to do is just work it into the recess across these lines here. I'm also going to go around the outside of the panel. Next up is silver, and that's just going to go on all the little rivets around the armour points, and also on the green armour, exactly as we did on the red armour, is just to basically paint in all these lines of battle damage. The figure is now complete, and I have set him off to one side to dry while he glues into place. So what we're going to do now is tackle the base. Now, with these type of rocky, simplistic bases, you can pretty much do anything you want, really. Particularly with sort of cartoon bases, I think the more crazy colour schemes you go, the better. Now, I'm going to keep things fairly straightforward. He's a bad guy, so therefore I'm going to paint it to be the colour of Snake Mountain. So I'm going to go purples, pinks, and touches of grey at the end. Now, all I've done is spray the whole thing black, including the bottom, and I've stuck a few little felt pads underneath so it's nice and secure. Obviously I don't need to touch the bottom now, I'm just going to be obviously concentrating on the top areas. So these are the colours I have assembled. I'm going to work literally from left to right, so starting with Nagaroth Knight, up to a burgundy, Screamer pink, pink horror, and then a touch of Administratum grey at the end. So my arm is aching pretty badly after all that dry brushing, but I think we got there in the end, and I'm pretty happy with the result. I think honestly, dry brushing on rocks is the easiest thing in the world, and I don't know anything more effective way to paint them really. So for me, I think that definitely says Snake Mountain. So I'm really excited now, because now I can put him together and I can come back and show you what he looks like for the final reveal. Here we go then, folks. Here is the final reveal of the completed statue. Now, apologies for the lighting. Normally I like to do these final reveals in natural daylight, but England in January, you don't really get much daylight, so I'm doing this under the spotlights in the kitchen, but hopefully you can see him work good enough. So just spin him round. There's all the detailing of the stitching on the back. See all the battle damage on the boots and onto the gun. Now he has a switch out on that gun, so if I just remove that, and then I can place on the hook. So what I did is I just varnished that end just to protect the paintwork, but also to give it a little bit more grip when you swap the weapons around, and that's staying on fine. It doesn't need any magnets or anything like that. It's on there pretty well. I think I prefer that one. I think I prefer the hook to the gun, but it's nice to have the two options and to be able to swap them back round. Like the base is very simple. That's what I like. No logos or anything daft like that on it. I'm not a fan of that type of stuff. I just like nice and simple. Environmental bases the way to go. I'm quite pleased with the paint job overall. I could have gone a little bit lighter, I think, perhaps on the skin, but I think it's okay. The thing is with these Motu characters is there's so many different variations on them. There's never any one true version, depending which cartoon or series, movie, book, whatever. So it does give you a little bit of freedom. But I think, on the whole, I mean, approximate colours I think are pretty much there. I'm quite pleased with that green. That's the first time that I've really gone and sort of mixed up any coloured metallics before. I've only ever really used out of the pot silvers, bronzes, golds, that kind of thing. So to use red and green metallic was a bit of fun. So yeah, it gives me the confidence to sort of mix up my own metallics going forward. Quite pleased with how the face came out. I think not doing the eyeballs was probably the best way to go. He looks suitably menacing this way. And I'm also pleased with the size I printed him out. So I did him as 1/8 scale. It's not normally a scale that I sort of chosen before, but as I mentioned earlier, space is becoming a bit of a premium. So dropping it down a little bit is from 1/6, which is my preferred scale for Star Wars statues. Definitely the way to go. As I mentioned before, the files come pre-set in 1/10 scale, so I did actually up it, increase the size by 25%, and I'm pretty happy with that. I think he comes out at around 27 centimeters high from the bottom of the base to the top of the head. And he's good size. I mean, the things with statues, I mean, you just want to be able to see what they are from across the room when they're on a shelf. That's the sort of the rule of thumb, I think. And so he certainly fits that bill. And I'm looking forward to doing some more, getting some other Motu characters from LA Figures. I think the set will look fantastic. So it's not really too much more to say. Well, I did look online to see what sort of other sort of licensed statues there are for Trapjaw, and there was only really a couple. I think there's one. Iron Studios are about to release one, which is actually very similar in style to this one. I do wonder if there was some. That was inspired the sculpt on this one to a degree. And I might be a little bit biased, but I actually prefer this one. Not least of all because it's bigger, because you can make it any size you want. But I actually do think the sculpt is a little bit nicer. And I won't mention the paint job because that would just be... I can't be independent in saying that. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I just want to re-emphasize once again how nice it was to build a model that is so simplistic in the cuts. I mean, it's by no means a simple model, but the way that you put it together, it couldn't be easier. The fact you can build it in sub-assemblies, paint it in sub-assemblies, is just the icing on the cake. It makes something like this so much easier. I painted this, you can tell when I'm having fun on a model because of the speed I do it in, and I think I did this guy in about 3.5 days, doing sort of a couple of hours a day on him. So yeah, I definitely enjoyed the process on this one, and I very much look forward to doing many more. As part of the welcome pack, they included Raphael from the Turtles, so I'll sneak peek, I have him printed up and I need to work on him, so he will be the next video that I do. Now, I can't actually post a link as to where you get this guy because he hasn't been released separately yet. Normally they do release them on, I think it's either Colts or CGT Trader, but at the moment the only way you can get this guy is if you actually subscribe to the Patreon, but he should be available fairly soon, I would imagine. Okay folks, well if you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed this type of content and characters like these, then please consider subscribing. If you've got any questions at all, then please let me know. Otherwise, I will see you in the next one. Take care.